evening, everyone. We'd like to call to order our Bedford Board of Education, September 5th, 2024 board meeting. Roll call, please, Ms. Armstrong.
Mrs. Boynton,
Here.
Mrs. Macklin,
Mr. Aiken,
Here.
Mrs. Turner Birch, Mrs. Carter.
Here. Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On our agenda is item number 2, our one plan goals 2.0. Oh, sorry. Could you please? Thank you.
Sure. Visitors are always welcome at our board meetings. If you wish to address the board, please complete the form provided upon arrival at the meeting and give it to the treasurer. Oral presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, so the meeting may proceed uninterrupted. Please silence all electronics.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter.
You're welcome.
Item number 2.01 is acknowledgement of our goals. Please read those at your leisure. Next on the agenda is item number 3 is our audience participation 3.01.
Carlia Jackson. You can address.
Hi, my name is Carlia, and I had wanted to bring to the board's attention of an incident involving my child. On August 29th, my child was assaulted at Haskett Middle School. The handling of the assault is what I am bringing to the board's attention.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. We cannot talk about that in public, in our public meeting. You have to be very careful with your words, Dr. Johnson, share with you.
So if you want, you can talk about it, a personal situation in executive session, but I'm required to ensure the students' due process rights are protected. And by sharing things in public, it will violate that.
So how would you like me to handle it?
If you can just send me an email, and if it's something you want them to hear,
Mm-hmm.
then just send an email and say I'm requesting, an executive session, and I can send you the wording
Okay,
to have that discussion.
that's
I
fine.
just don't, I don't want her steps or his steps to get mixed up by sharing things.
So don't discuss the incident, but I can discuss with y'all what the issue
Right.
is.
Right.
Okay, so we had an issue.
I mean, in executive session,
So right now we can talk about it.
Okay, well, I'll talk about policy. How about that?
think.
So when an incident happened at a school involving a student, and I asked regarding policies and procedures, I was told to look it up. If you guys go into any business, any institution, and you have an issue with something, and you ask for a policy, you expect those people to be knowledgeable and give you that. I was told by several staff members that they did not know the policy procedures. They did not know if this was district policy, if this was school policy, and given the runaround. The other stuff just involves the hearing, so I guess I'll email you with all of that. But what I would love for the board and your administration to take from this today is that when you're handling a parent, when something happens to their child, and you tell them that you can't work on it or you can't discuss it because of policy, you have to back that up. You have to be able to show that, and you can't expect the parent to do their own research and figure out what policies pertaining to their child in this situation. And when you ask for, again, if it's policy bar statements or whatever, you expect to get those statements, because that's what I'm lacking as far as how this was handled. I still have not received statements. I still have not received what actually happened to my child, and I have an issue with that. So I'll email you and
So my family is here today. I'm not sure, but my daughter Jasmine is currently in the 11th grade, and we have done the due diligence last year to get her promoted up to 12th grade, and they dropped the ball. And so that leaves us here today, where I think it's supposed to be on your docket. So I just wanted to make sure that we were given the right information.
I'm sorry, this is an academic issue or?
No, last year we saw that she would be graduating early, so in
Oh,
November.
it's on here.
Yes.
Right, okay, so that's what we didn't know, and we didn't want it to be left where we just wanted to make sure we were here and we, know the procedure and that, because I'm trying to teach her that we should be talking about scholarships right now, and it needs to be official that she's a 12th grader, things of that matter. And so I wanted to say how we were displeased with the fact that it was dropped wrong. Ms. Terrell was great.
So, we can't talk about personnel.
Personnel.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'd like to say, I've never been here.
You're good.
Yeah.
Right? I've never been here.
You
So
were
I'm
totally
just telling you guys,
You were totally
let
fine.
you know
No.
that, and we put that in the letter. I think we saw,
Yeah.
we put it in the letter that, the school system has changed, okay? I have a 28-year-old that came through the system, and I have now a 16-year-old and an 8-year-old that came through the system, and it's changed. And I hope that you guys are working well, because after this, we may not be back. But I hope that you guys are working well to make a difference for the kids that are doing well, because I've had that come up with her before. The overachievers sometimes don't get as much attention as the kids that are causing issues. Because I even had some of people know me from my son who was causing problems, right? So just as much as I'm up here with him who was causing problems, person or not, he's grown. But I still want to make sure that we're taking care of those kids and that they do not, because they don't always have somebody like me who would come up and be involved, okay? So if that's what you guys are here for, I just wanted to let y'all know that we were here and we wanted to hear it, that she is approved and we can start moving forward as far as 12th grade, we can start celebrating.
Thank you.
Also, I heard that the bus system stopped, and I wanted to, I don't know if that's the transportation, is that number 4, transportation updates?
Yep.
Okay, because she has to walk from home now, so that was kind of disturbing to hear that was what was going on. So I want to hear what's going on with that. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much.
And then Mrs. Scott, if you wanted us to follow up, we didn't have a number for you.
Oh,
One of them.
What was my daughter in 12th grade when we were here? You won't have to worry about me. Yeah, see me at graduation.
And I hope it's okay, board. I also, I wanna apologize. I don't wanna, cause it might come across as like I'm cutting somebody off or whatever may have. But I'm required, like if there's certain things that are talked about, to interject to kind of, protect, if it's like a student issue. There are just certain things that I'm not permitted. Because even if you're the parent, the student at a certain point or age can come back and say that their due process was violated. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's not that I don't want you to provide that opportunity to be heard. I just want to make sure that you get all the rights that are afforded to you. And sometimes if some steps are missed, if you come back and they say, no, because X, Y, and Z happened, now you can't, if that makes sense. The same goes for like, if there's personnel topics, we're not allowed, or the board is not allowed to permit discussions about any personnel items, and that's not board policy, that's the law, that it can't happen in public session. So if you have a complaint about an employee and things of that nature, there's a certain process and a way that it has to be discussed. Again, or they could come back out on the board or yourself, and you won't be afforded the steps that you really should have to get the issue addressed. I just wanted to explain that.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Next.
Erica Burks.
I'm coming today because I know that the bus transportation was eliminated based on your mileage, but my issue is that from my daughter goes to Columbus, there's no crossing guard where you go across Bear Creek, and every day in the morning, in the afternoon, afternoon, the kids are running out in the middle of the street, and someone's gonna get hit. Their ages between 3rd and 5th grade, and there's no adult at all there. The first week of school for 2 days, it was a police officer, but after that, it went away. And that's concerning because you have so many kids, they did have a bus, but now they have to walk this year. They don't know how to cross that street. And today, for example, I picked my daughter up. A little girl just ran straight out in the street where Bear Creek goes like this. Didn't look, I had to stop her. What if no one's there? You know, and that can be something bad, that can be tragedy for the kids. So I'm wondering, are they gonna hire someone or police officer? Because again, they get out early on Wednesdays. There's yesterday, nobody there. Every day I go drop my daughter off, there's no one there. Pick her up, there's no one there. And it's very concerning as someone living in this community, because I don't want someone's child to get hurt or killed because we don't have no one to show them how to cross that street, especially at a young age. They're young. Also, far as the bus thing getting taken away, that's fine, but we weren't communicated to the day before school started. So a lot of parents have to figure out how to get their kids to school. And I have 3 kids, high school, middle school, and Columbus, that I have to get to school every morning. My high schooler, we walked Saturday morning, got up at 6:45 to see how long it would take for her to walk from our house. It took 45 minutes. My issue is that after next month, it's gonna be dark. So at 6:45, as a young lady, walking up Columbus to go to the high school, that's very discerning. Because it's a lot of different people that ride up and down the street. It's a lot of kids in our streets behind me, in front of me, that now are walking. And I'm concerned that something may happen to them young ladies walking when it gets pitch black. Also, by them leaving on Wednesdays early, I know last year Heskett was Wednesday, the high school was Friday. I was running all over the place yesterday to get all my kids home for early dismissal. I have a job, so I had to kind of like take an extra, early lunch or figure out I worked over so that I can go and get my high schooler, my middle schooler, and then get back in time to get my child from Columbus, because I don't want her walking home because she has no one to cross her. I'm afraid something can happen to her. So, I'm bringing it to attention. I know it may be other parents that just haven't said anything, but I think we need to sit down and figure out how we can resolve this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Could you speak about the, Pepper Heights, please? Pepper Heights.
So I can say that I did speak with, council, Bedford Heights Council. I had talked to the mayor. They know that this is a concern. They hire the crossing guards. And since day 1, since I've gotten phone calls, and I know other people have gotten phone calls, we've been in contact with City Hall. They, have it posted on their website for, applicants. They've had some people come in interested. They're also going to go and talk to their 60 Up Plus Club, to see who's willing to take over those positions for us. The people that were in those positions retired, so they're actively working on it. That's the part that I know.
But in the meantime, my question is, can't we use school staff, even though that's not something we staff, but in the meantime, can't we get one?
I'm not, I'm sorry. One, I do appreciate you guys reaching out, and Ms. Birch as well, Ms. Birch following up to acknowledge that the city had, a plan and to address that plan. I guess I would have, one, we don't have the staff to do that, and how are we gonna pay the staff to do that? But also, we have to ask, I don't know if that's a union job at the city. We have really, great relationships with, Bedford Heights, and I'm so appreciative that they responded so quickly. When I talked to Councilwoman Thomas as well as Mayor Stevens, they stated that they were aware that they had received initial communication. They had already posted the job. They they already stated, and I believe that you stated that you had saw that there was, if there's not a police officer, there's gonna be an auxiliary police officer out there. So they are addressing, that issue, but unfortunately, we're not permitted to just put a Bedford City School District employee. They're two different entities. And when you have unions involved, you have to make sure that you don't, do something not legal.
And I do just want to remind everybody that it is a city position, so, you know, if there's not, if you do see that and there's no officer there or anyone there, you know, you can kindly call the Bedford Heights. They're very, very, very responsive to you. We have a fantastic mayor and council, and they need to know that if there's no one there, because that they have shared with us that there would be an officer or an auxiliary officer there. So, you know, you can call them to the city, contact them, and share with them just what you just shared with us, that there was no one there, at document the time, and you know, of course, report what you saw. So, but I do appreciate that, and thank you for bringing it to the board. The board members have been contacted. We, of course, Dr. Johnson followed up immediately with the city of Bedford Heights, and the mayor and Councilwoman Thomas, as a matter of fact, responded very quickly. So we would just have to keep following up with them to find out, especially you said yesterday, you know, we can report those times. You also can just call the city and share with them. So, thank you.
We address that specific issue. Typically, we if there are some other things, we wait and we follow up, and we'll make sure that we follow up. But anything regarding transportation, there is a presentation on transportation, and at the conclusion of that, board, if you have questions, I did let Steph know that you guys might have some questions after that presentation regarding anything about transportation.
Thank you.
So Kevin McMillan.
This is about transportation. I know you guys just spoke on that, but I wanted my voice to be heard. I have a little girl that goes to Central, and her bus got taken away. And that means I have to stay home every day to take her back and forth because the bus got taken away. Because now Wednesdays, you guys letting kids out early, and now I have to pick her up and take her to school every day. And I just want to know what's the plan for transportation. I know I've reached out to probably a couple of you sitting down regarding transportation, so just wanted to get a update on that.
Okay. Thank you. Are you going to speak on that, or you want to wait until?
Well, we're going to have a transportation presentation.
That's why I didn't want to go any further, because I didn't know what the transportation updates exactly were. But yeah, I just wanted my voice to be heard. I know I've been needing to come to a few meetings, didn't know how it all worked, but as I said, I think I reached out to, I know Ms. Johnson, I reached out to you. I don't know what else. But I'm very concerned about this, and crossing guards. I was told that there were going to be one at every crossing of the street, but going to Central is only one. I was told by transportation that there'll be a crossing guard almost at every street. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't record that. But as I said, it's only one crossing guard, and that's literally on the corner of the school. So I don't know what the process of that is, but I was told there'll be more than one.
Just in terms of the crossing guard, I can address that question. And hopefully, if there's other questions about transportation process, how we got here, things of that nature, and what we can and can't do moving forward, Ms. Tabor will answer that. But again, just remember that the crossing guards are hired by the city. So if you, and we had a great meeting with the mayor and the city manager today. So yeah, so he did share as well that maybe you or someone else have probably reached out. He is very responsive as well. Mayor Kochi and Mike Malice, they did share with us that even in situations like this where there were concerns with transportation, they actually did have an officer sit out and assess like Columbus Road and things like that. And so to Bedford, the City of Bedford Council or the mayor and ask about the crossing guard piece.
Okay. So the mayor and the council,
Yes,
just gotta be one meeting. Okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you everyone for coming out. We'll try to get some answers and some solution to the issues that you brought up tonight. But thank you for coming. Next on the agenda is a presentation, 4.01, a presentation from transportation, and we're all looking forward to those updates, Stephanie. You're up.
Good evening, board. Good evening, audience. I'm Stephanie Tabor. I'm the transportation supervisor. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Danielle Henderson. I'm the transportation specialist.
Give me just a second. I'm sorry. Okay. Our level of service has changed due to multiple reasons. One thing being finances, manpower, and transporting non-pub schools. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the cost behind transporting our students to non-pub schools and the cost for transporting with our own school district. For example, there was a school last year that we transported, a non-pub school, kids, and they came up to a cost of an excess of over $150,000 in total. In total, the transportation that we provide for non-pub schools for another school for the year, it came up to, for all the non-pub schools altogether, came up to approximately $750,000. And then the school, $750,000, I'm sorry. And then the schools, we notified the parents, we did send out a notice letting them know that the parent time zone had changed, and we did that around, it was July 15th. And then we also have we're trying to update some things. We have the My Stop program in there for you all, and I'm gonna let Danielle talk on that, where you can actually follow the bus and see where the bus is and what time it's getting there.
Hi, everyone. So one thing I do want to address is before the parent transportation zone was implemented, I contacted every city and spoke with the chief secretaries, letting them know that we would need crossing guards. And they wanted to know what children will be affected. I told them the amount of children that would be affected and the streets that they would be crossing to get to their schools. So just to let you know, there was forethought put into this, and I did personally reach out to all of the cities requesting that there will be crossing guards. As far as we get a lot of parents that call and they want to know where the bus is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of obstacles transporting our children. Parents aren't home sometimes. We want to make sure that when they get off the bus, they're in safe hands. So that makes the stops, they're longer. We have now a new app that the parent will be able to track the bus and see in real time where the bus is. So even, you have a high school student, junior high school student, they'll be able to look and see, oh, the bus is going to be here in 2 minutes, and they can run outside and catch the bus. But we're still in the testing phase of that. We want to make sure all the kinks are knocked out, and then we'll be able to have that go out to district-wide.
Okay, and we have been working diligently on making more hires, getting more hires. We have been getting more and more people in, and to some of you parents, some of the parents have actually reached out and are coming aboard. So thank you to those parents that reached out to help us with this to better serve our kids. Okay.
Can you talk, Steph, a little bit about, because we talked about the bus driving, and there were 3 components that we talked about, because we also meet as a leadership team quite often. I know your departments meet quite often, but the unfortunate part, and I know some of you at the board level, like you've also been involved with some legislation that continues to roll out. We don't want to make it seem as if it's money, 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 and we unfortunate, again, I have children of my own. We show up every single day. We would not have gone into this profession. I don't think you as a board would have ran if you didn't have the interest of every child in this district at heart. But your hands are tied. And I just ask our community members, a lot of time and effort that's put in to informing us that we don't care. I'll be honest, we need to start making some calls to your representatives and your legislators. They are purposefully attacking public education. One of the ways you do that is you pool the resources. We have children that have never stepped foot in Bedford City School District, but they get top priority in terms of transportation over your children. And as a result of that, we don't have the funds, nor do we have the drivers, nor do we have the vehicles to transport children. For example, I know it might make sense to some to go to the media and say, take this away instead of that. The unfortunate part of that is that now the eyes are open because many people didn't even know that we were busing above state minimums. Most districts don't bus high schools. Most districts don't bus below or above beyond a 1 or 1.5. We are above state minimum. As a result of some of the conversations, we've now gotten calls to say, you want to talk about operating levies? You want to talk about more cost? There's a huge cost. You just talked about $700,000. Because we bus kids above the state minimum, we have to bus charter private schools above the state minimums. Just because we take the high school away doesn't mean we're now going to shift those resources somewhere else, because as soon as you open that up, again, you open up more requirements that the state is saying you now have to bus more K-8 kids. So it's kind of a revolving door game, unfortunately, that we did not choose to play, but those above us have now set those parameters, and they're making it very difficult to fund things that we know are necessary to get your children to and from school. I had a great conversation board with Danielle and Ms. Tabor about some various things that we can do. But I just want to remind people, you are cleaning up. You have not been in that seat very, very long. But you have some amazing ideas and things that you talked about doing that will, I believe, open the door for us to have even more drivers, cut costs, so that we can definitely make sure that kids are safe. So can you maybe share some of those things that we talked about, as well as the stimulating, large requirements that they even have for people to become a bus driver that are ridiculous?
Well, to become a bus driver, I'm going to walk you all the way through. If you called and you wanted to get a job, you have to go online and fill out the application. After you fill out the application, you have to do what's called a pre-service class. They're going to first, before you do anything, we're going to do an extensive background check on you because you are working with the children. So then after you do your pre-service class, you're going to have to go and get your CDLs, and you have to do air brake, passenger, school bus, and then general knowledge. And it takes a little bit to get through that. Some people get discouraged and they may not go any further, but we try to encourage them to keep going to get that. You have to do that, and once you do that, we put you on the roll with the onboard instructor, and you're going to stay with that instructor until you are able to complete the job that you need to do. Make sure that they're following the procedures and they're doing everything to ensure that the kids are safe. And then, let's see, another thing we're doing, that will be it. And then you go off and you take your test at the testing site, and they'll test you. And then once you get that, you're released back to us. And once you're released back to us, you again go back out on the road with one of our OBIs, which is an onboard instructor. And that instructor will not pass you until you're able to do all those things. That means releasing your kids off the bus, You have to do your hands down and all that to let the kids know that it's safe when to cross and them to look both ways and to do all that to make sure that they're safe in doing what they're doing with boarding and unboarding. We also.
Ms. Stephan, they're paid, Mrs. Armstrong reminded me.
Oh yeah, they
that
are paid
whole
for
time
training. You are
before they
paid for
even
training,
get on the
yes.
bus.
Yes, you are paid for training. We encourage some people to come on as an aide. And as you're an aide, you can get on the bus with the kids. That way you can see, and again, we do an extensive background check because you're working with the kids. You do that, and then they can cross over into becoming a bus driver. And we do have quite a few people that we do have in the middle of that process right now. So we will be having some more people come on. And again, as I said, we had a lot of parents call in and put in applications that want to give a helping hand. And we really do appreciate it. I myself even go out and today I drove 4 different routes. So none of us are just sitting back. So if you ever called and tried to get me and you couldn't get me, that's why, because I'm out driving. But I will get back in touch with you. Leave messages. We're there to help. The pre-service class is a week. It's 1 week. You go there from 10 to 1, and you have to do every class. If you miss one, you'll have to wait till the next month, and you'll take that class again. But there's not a step that you can miss and be put on that bus to drive these kids. You have to pass every test in order to drive the kids. There's a lot you have to do. But again, it can be done. And that's
I would just say, the job is intimidating if you've never done it before. You're transporting precious cargo, so you know that you have these children's lives in your hand, and so it's hard to get these people to come off the street and become bus drivers. So we are doing what we can to get more bus drivers. We had a parent call today wanting to know why her child's bus was late. We had to let her know we were short drivers, it's on the way. And she said, I'm a bus driver for Cleveland. I live in Bedford. I want to come help you guys. So, we're doing the best that we can.
Board, one of the things we talked about, and I know you probably have some questions, is that I know that Mrs. Armstrong brought this up before as well, that getting quotes on some vans, Steph said that those are less requirements, and some of the costs that she's talking about, we spent $150-some thousand to transport children that do not attend Bedford City Schools. You can kind of reverse that cost and get a van. The state has now stated a 9-passenger van, I think, Tad, but the requirements are not as stiff. So those are some of the things that they've talked about looking into. They can cover short routes. Still, they would be our employees, but we would not be outsourcing that because, unfortunately, private companies are taking advantage of school districts. They know that we don't have the drivers. They know that we can't cover everything. So basically, it is their market, and they just keep rising the cost.
yes, we had one that just increased on us.
Right, that was a $750,000, and that's per year.
Yeah, that's for the year.
Only they can. But after.
First time I got that.
That's a good question.
Our first time too.
So board, do we have any questions? Is this the time we can ask questions of transportation? Hopefully we can cover your question with our question.
I don't have any because I drove for 90 years for Bedford. I know what it's like. So it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. It's not. You got the kids. You got the
And I
parents,
tell you,
got-
it's not an easy job. I've been punched, I've been hit, but you gotta love through it. And it's okay, because some of our kids, they need that extra. You just let them know, and you just move on from there. Every day's a new day. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. If you did not get an answer to your question in the update, please reach out to those ladies, please. So we wanted to put a face with those titles and those people you're calling. Those are the 2 ladies that you would be talking to. So if you didn't get your question answer during the update, please reach out. Thank you. Sure.
I guess I do have a follow-up when I was processing. And it's not really directed to Stephanie. Once the opportunity of having more drivers and or getting vans to subsequently take the students who don't attend our district, those individuals that lost busing before, would that be an opportunity for them to regain transportation again?
The only way that we could violate board policy would be that we would have it in our budget, because if we lessen the requirements of the board policy, again, that opens up the door that we would then have to bus more private school kids, and we just don't have that right now. I think Tabby has some things in the 5-year forecast.
I was gonna say, we also have the written plan with the state that we have to stick to, and this was part of the written plan.
All right, thank you, ladies.
Quick question, I'm sorry. Can we, because I know we have the board policy, can we put a link to that somewhere where our district parents and community members can get to it directly so they can see that? Or do
I
we
mean,
already have?
it's
I mean,
on
I
our
know.
website,
I
but we can guide them
That-
to
yeah.
where they can find board policies.
Right.
Yes.
No, that's what I'm, yeah, so they can know where exactly to go, because I know that we have those, and I wanna make sure that if, because I know we do our best to definitely follow those, and we wanna make sure that everybody sees those, that's my.
I would say, I will give a disclaimer, because we are in the midst of working on our website. So just be a little bit patient with us in getting some things updated. But I think, what you're asking, if there's something pertaining to transportation, there should be a link on the transportation department page. Yes, so we can make sure that we do that. Paul's back there, so Paul, if you can, let Laura know that we can just add that link to all the transportation policies. But like I said, if we can put it there, but then we'll let you know once things are updated, then where it might look a little bit different.
Thank you, yeah,
No, that's a good question.
Sorry? Thank you. Next on the agenda is item number 5, is approval of our minutes. Could I have a motion? Can I have a motion to approve 5.01, which is approval for our minutes for August 15, 2024, special meeting?
Are we able to take all of these together?
If you like, it's up to the board.
Request to take all of these together?
I'm good.
That's good? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of 5.01, August 15, 2024, special meeting, 5.02, approval minutes, a special meeting, August 22nd, 2024, and 5.03, approval of the minutes for August 29th, 2024, another special meeting. Could I have a motion, please, for all three?
Motion to approve all 3 dates of approval minutes for 501, 5.02, 5.03.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Turner Birch and second by Mrs. Macklin. Do we have any questions for it regarding those minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter? Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's is item number 6, which is our consent agenda, 6.01. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Carter and second by Mrs. Turner Birch. Do we have any questions for it? Or discussion?
That's a lot, but no. No question.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Carter? Yes. Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Abstain.
Motion passes 4 and 1 is still. Dr. Johnson, did you have anything you want to share? number 7, Superintendent's report, Dr. Johnson.
Good evening, Board President, Vice President, and Board members. This evening I have 4 items to recommend. Under 7.01, we ask of your approval of the request for early graduate. Under 7.02, we ask of your approval of the following exhibits for services. Under 7.03, these are some of the things we talked about. These are some outside agencies that we serve as the fiscal agent for. So we ask of your approval of the following items under the Executive Director of Academic Achievement. And under 7.04, we ask of your approval of the following item brought to you by the Executive Director of Operations.
Thank you. 7.01, could I have a motion to approve the request for early graduation?
So moved to request for early graduation.
Second. It's been moved by Mrs. Turner Birch and second by Mrs. Macklin. Questions, discussion?
Congratulations.
I had a little smile on her face.
She was 3.
Yeah, she been in advanced classes since kindergarten. She worked hard.
Look, you just gotta promise us you're gonna keep working that hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's a natural.
You had to help us tough like that.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Board. Can I have a motion to approve the service contracts for 7.02?
Motion to approve service contracts as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Carter and second by Mrs. Turner Birch. Questions, discussion, Board? Hearing none, roll call, please, Mrs. Armstrong.
Mrs. Carter? Yes. Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Board.
Can I make a statement? That we passed. I just have to highlight, I'm grateful for the agreement with the Barber College. There was a recent bill that passed that allowed students to participate in barbering at the age of 16. They lowered the age from 18 to 16 recently through the State House. And so this is an excellent example of that. I was in a meeting with Sherrod Brown in which this came up. And so it was very important to see that we are actually participating in that opportunity to expand opportunities in trades for our students. So kudos. Thank you.
7.01, can I have a motion, please?
7.03.
7.03, could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve 7.03 service contracts as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Carter and second by Mr. Aiken. Do we have any questions, discussion about any? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Carter? Yes. Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Board. And our last one is 7.04. Could I have a motion to approve those service contracts?
Motion to approve service contract as presented.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Akins and second by Mrs. Macklin. Questions, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter? Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Board. Item number 8, Treasurer's Report.
Evening, Board President Mrs. Boynton, Vice President Mrs. Macklin. Tonight I have 2 items on the agenda. First being the purchase orders, then and nows. And then the second item is the approval of student activity budgets, purpose and goal statements. As we talked about before, you'll see these throughout the year for the different groups. They have to submit their budget before they can start spending the funds. These 2 particular ones are for events. For the beginning of the year, I think it's homecoming and then a different club. So again, you will continue to see these. Those are my 2 items. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for item number 8.01, the purchase orders, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Turner Birch and second by Mrs. Carter. Questions, board? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board. 8.02. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve student activity budgets and purpose and goal statements as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Carter, second by Mrs. Turner Birch. Questions, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Carter? Yes. Mrs. Turner Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board. Oh, is that a question?
Yeah, when is homecoming?
When is homecoming?
What's the date? Oh.
I can get that for you, but we're waiting next 2 weeks.
I think,
Yeah.
when I asked, when I talked to the principal, she said she was going to verify. She thinks it's the first weekend, but she couldn't remember. I think it's like October 4th, but I couldn't remember.
And he was trying to also do the
Right.
game stuff.
Yes.
We will have that big.
Huh?
We will have that
We
big.
will get a date.
That
she was supposed to,
We got budget.
have
well, we got a budget though. Yeah, she was supposed to get back to me, but I know she said she had a new advisor, and she was trying to confirm with them.
Item number 9 is the Board of Education new business, old business. And we have item number 9.01. Item point 9.01, accepting the resignation of our treasurer and appointing our temporary treasurer of record. So, board, I would need a motion to approve this resolution as it is presented. I know it's going to be tough to present that, but I do need that for tonight, please.
Motion to approve resolution as presented.
I'm a second if you owe me for this.
She always do, but
It has been moved by Mrs. Carter and second by Mrs. Macklin.
Roll call. You don't have, you lost of words.
No discussion? Well, roll call, please.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
We're going to be missed.
We do love
You
you.
have done a job.
Excellent.
Hold on for just a second. Motion passes 5-0.
Sorry.
First off,
Ah,
opportunity to talk.
I'm not a talker, so I'm gonna keep it really sweet and simple and just say, as a longtime member of the Bedford City School District community, I'm going to remain deeply connected and committed to its success, and I wish the district continued to grow in success as they move forward, and I always cherish my role in serving this wonderful community. Well, if you can't tell by all the tears, we love you. So,
With a heavy heart,
very happy.
we celebrate you for the impactful work that you have provided and you have done. And we thank you for that.
So very good. You have really changed a lot of things around for us and jumped in both feet and just kept something. I wish you well in whatever you do. You'll be well missed.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Sheesh. Thank you, Tabby.
told her, we know where she lives, we know where to find her. I know I can't say enough, we had some really good conversations when we first came on board, and I talked about this a little bit at convocation. Public education, is a beast, but you've made such a milestone while you've been here. You came into a situation, and you just hit the ground running. And you put a lot of processes and procedures in place that will assist the district for years to come that people don't even know. It's unfortunately not because we're talking about transportation, but a lot of times because people see the lights come on and they see the buses moving, they think everything's okay. They don't understand all the moving parts that are happening out of your office. And so I know I personally want to thank you. We both said we never knew that this is where we were going to be, but I don't think that any of us cross paths just by chance. And though we're not always having the same finish line, I believe that you have been a win-win for Bedford City Schools. So I thank you.
Thank you, Tabby, for all the late nights, all the stuff.
That's your husband.
Even when we,
Right, yes.
even when we would leave, we'll still be here. So it was a lot to do, and we'll use this word because we do use it a lot. It was a lot to clean up. Thank you. Good luck. Good luck.
I definitely want to say thank you. I know this is, like, Mom was still in my first year, and you took time to sit with me, explain things to me, and was just patient. And I could tell that even before I got in, times that I've come to meetings or just been around you, your soul is definitely a bright one. And I am so sad that we're not gonna have you here. But whatever you do, I know you're gonna touch a lot of lives. So
Alrighty. Item number 10 is, could I, 10.01, could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to consider the appointment, go into executive session, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee, to consider the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest.
second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Turner Birch and second by Mrs. Carter. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner Birch,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. At this time, we will be going into executive session. We will come out of executive session. We will not be voting on anything after we come back into open session. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for all of your questions. We look forward to seeing you again at our next meeting, which will be September 19th. So thank you again.
And I just got a text message, homecoming is 10-4, dance is on 10-5.
When is it?
Homecoming is the, of course, football game and all of that on 10-4, and then dance is on 10-5.